Hello, everyone. Happy Friday, and welcome back to Sin City Crypto. My name is David. I'll be one of your co-hosts, and today, like every single day, we're coming at you live from our beautiful studio in the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada. We have an amazing show for you guys today. I am so excited. What a way to end the week. It's Forest Friday. We have a very special guest joining us, first timer. He's a ETF analyst at Bloomberg. We're going to break down the BlackRock ETF, and come to find out today, the Gary Gensler and company, they just approved another Bitcoin ETF, but it was a leveraged ETF. We're going to get all that broken down. Also, Prime Trust has gotten a cease and desist letter from the state of Nevada. What does that mean for its clients? What does that mean for Bitcoin? And speaking of Bitcoin, where's Bitcoin going? But first, here is your second co-host, and his name is Robin.
Hola, it's your boy Big Rob back in the house. Welcome to Sin City Crypto. If it's your first time checking us out, we're an entertainment-focused cryptocurrency channel where we take old, boring, and stale information and we repackage it up in a fun and sexy way. And Bitcoin's moving, man. 31.5. I saw it creeping up today, man. You know what that means?
Gotta.
That's right. Bull market's back, baby.
Rocco, can we patch in for us, please? For the love of God. For the love of God. Guys, if you're not familiar, Fridays, Forest Friday. It's the only show of the week where we have three hosts, and it's an honor to have our friend Forrest join us yet again. Forrest, how you been, brother?
Doing well. It's always a pleasure. Guys, drop a like before we get started on your laptops, on your desktops, on your mobile devices.
Everywhere. What Forrest said, I agree. And made Robin speak less by not saying that. So thank you, Forrest. Now, 31K. We're not going to jump into charts here, but just real quick, what's the sentiment? What's your sentiment now, Forrest? Is it markets are moving? Is it we're in a bull market? What is it, a bull trap?
I personally don't think it's a bull trap. There are a couple of traps laying around the corner that we do have to be aware of, but momentum is up. This Bitcoin, and I know we're going to talk about it later, but I even said it last week, this Bitcoin ETF from BlackRock is super, super, super bullish. There is now a clear path to six-figure Bitcoin, a clear narrative towards six-figure Bitcoin, where before the only narrative was the Bitcoin halving. That was the only thing that Bitcoin really had. Everyone was just looking forward to the halving, just trying to scrape by until 10 months from now. Now it's like we've got traditional finance players coming into the space aggressively. There's demand coming in. So momentum is up. We do have to be careful. Mt. Gox distribution still on the table. The U.S. government still has around 42,000 Bitcoin to sell, I believe, by the end of the year. So you'll probably see some corrections here and there from that. Even just when those wallets move, the government moves Bitcoin, or people think that the government is moving Bitcoin around, the market tanks 5-10%. But despite that, I do believe the momentum is upwards and the narrative is six-figure Bitcoin.
Oh, Forrest, real quick. Did you happen to notice that we're coming into you in a crystal clear, pristine 4K resolution today? If you didn't, that's where we're at.
You know why? You know why, right? How do we get to 4K? Well, a lot of it is to do with our channel sponsor, CAMS, Blue Wire Technology. Their business focuses on your network and IT issues, so you can focus on making money for your business. And today's 4K stream is brought to you by them. If you want more info, visit bluewiretech.com or simply click the link in the description of this video. Now, guys, it's Friday. We need some Friday giggles. Well, we have another video of our chief commander what is it, chief commander? Commander-in-chief.
Commander-in-chief, yes.
Commander-in-chief. Joseph.
When are you going to stop making fun of that old man?
I'm not. He makes fun of himself. I just laugh with him. So I do want to mention his middle name is Robinette. Just throwing that out there, okay? So President Biden.
I feel like you're trying to link something.
Was walking. This is the Prime Minister of India, and he's still holding his hand like, and his wife is trying to. So it's like, you know, when you hold your kid's hand and you walk him to the classroom. So he looks so lost, dude. Like, okay. So there's your Biden clip of the week. Stay tuned next week for your next one. Also, so we talked about this yesterday, and I'm curious, Forrest, I see you're laughing over there. So we do have a battle of the billionaire giants. So In the red corner, we have Elon Musk, 180 pounds, 245 billion in net worth, 130 million followers, 10 plus kids. His combat style is hostile takeover, and his special move is hitting the opponent with the autonomous Tesla. Or he's come out and said his patented move is the walrus, where he simply just falls on you and lays there. Then we have, in the blue corner, Mr. Zuckerberg, worth about $100 billion, about less than half of what Elon's worth. 11 million followers, only 3 kids. Does have expertise in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and his special move is to trap opponents in the empty metaverse. Now, who is your money on here, Forrest?
100% Mark Zuckerberg. He will shave 20% off of the valuation of Tesla stock when he just knocks out or submits Elon. It's not even going to be close. Like, Mark Zuckerberg actually trains jiu-jitsu. Elon, I've seen pictures of him out on his yacht. He's looking a little bit out of shape, a little pasty. He doesn't get out much. He doesn't train. He does have the weight advantage, but it's not going to matter.
If there's one man on this planet that can excel in a profession that you wouldn't expect him to, or in an industry you wouldn't expect him, it's Elon Musk, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, the guy, all of a sudden, he's over here making internet payments, and then all of a sudden he's making.
You went from
electric cars
to autonomous cars to Twitter.
Yeah, autonomous cars. Then he's like, hey, I'll start building tunnels. And why not just take over human brain functionality and tap into that? So it wouldn't surprise me if he's just all of a sudden becomes. I'm telling you, he's got the Neuralink and he just downloads new professions. Like, he's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to be a boring expert. I'm going to learn and I'm telling you, he's going to download karate. I've seen The Matrix. I know that's how all of a sudden, he's just going to be like,
crypto golfer, In My Hero brought up a good point, said, someone with over 10 kids doesn't feel pain like the rest of us. My money's on Elon. Touché.
Hold on. He's got over 10 kids?
Yeah, bro.
If anybody can afford to have over 10 kids, it is definitely Elon.
I mean, he is the richest man literally in the entire world. We have this. This is kind of interesting. So this is Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, talking about hits on their website. And listen to what he had to say.
The hits on BlackRock's on our website was 3,000 on COVID, 3,000 hits on a monetary policy, and 600,000 hits on Bitcoin. So what that tells you is Bitcoin has caught the attention and the imagination of many people.
Can I get bullhorn sound?
Don't let the mainstream media narrative fool you. Saying, oh, Bitcoin's only used by money launderers and people who do bad things. And that is not true. That is not true.
It's not?
No, it's not true. There's people I'm telling you, we are at this phase. We've seen it all week. They've admitted defeat. And now they're like, fine. Okay, cool. SEC, Gary Gensler, let do something, man. Help us out here.
Okay.
Let us get in cheap.
Is there any realistic chance this thing doesn't pass?
I don't think. No.
I mean, but let's take our moon glasses off and think about it. They have just straight denied everything. They've not budged in the slightest. They have not even had an inkling of bullish reversal sentiment. I don't know if that's the right terminology there, but they have not looked at Bitcoin ETF. It was not given any slight piece of information saying that they would pass it, even remotely. Now with BlackRock, but here's the thing. I mean, I agree. But I'm just taking a second to think. I'm like, is it actually going to pass? Because they've been the supreme haters, bro.
I think it's going to pass, bro.
Let me ask you this: if it was your decision to stand in the way of BlackRock and deny the Bitcoin ETF, how comfortable would you sleep at night?
Uncomfortable.
I mean, I would be fine, but in the position that he's in, like there is so many intertwined relationships, friends that work at one office versus the other, and so it's like when you get the best lawyer in a small town, he goes golfing with the judge, and unless he, it's murder or something, the judge is gonna side with that lawyer's favor. And that's how we are now. We're in like a small town, and it's a very small community between the people that are at the top of the SEC and BlackRock execs, and they know each other, man. And I just don't see it. I don't see them getting in their way. I really don't.
I don't know. What are we gonna say, Forrest?
I just is crazy stuff you hear about BlackRock and how corrupt and how powerful they are. If you're the one person that's standing in the way of BlackRock getting their Bitcoin ETF approved and you say no, like, I'm sleeping with one eye open. I'm looking over my shoulder. Like, I wouldn't feel comfortable. I'm not insinuating that they're going to like murder anyone, but like they're going to just remove you. Like, they're going to find a way to remove you. Like, you're an obstacle in their path. They want this Bitcoin ETF approved. Any obstacle, I think they'll just remove. I'm not saying they're going to go murder people, but they'll get them fired, get somebody else appointed, buy somebody else out. We know whatever it takes to get this approved. If they want it approved, they're getting it approved.
We know Gary's ultimate goal is to be the Treasury Secretary, and so saying if he pisses off the wrong people, you ain't gonna get your dream job, Gary. So pay attention. Now let's take a look at the markets here. We'll get into some TA. So we have coin market cap pulled up here, 1.2 trillion on the total market cap volume, coming in at 42.2 billion. Bitcoin dominance over 50%. This is what coin market cap says. I know some other places are showing over 51%. Speaking of Bitcoin, $31,140, up 18% over the last 7 days.
I want to ask the chat, where do you think Bitcoin is going? Do you think we get to 40K first or 23K first? Where do you think we're going? Put a 1 in the chat if you think that Bitcoin will hit 40K first. Put a 2 in the chat if you think it's more likely we get to 23K before we get to 40. Also, we have Crypto Surfer has been a member for 2 months. And also Jenna X, who has been here in studio with us before and longtime fan favorite.
Jenna,
nice to see you in the chat as well. So, to all of you, hola!
Forrest, can we take a look at a Bitcoin chart? What is more likely in your opinion? 40K first or 23K? And what's the next level of resistance we should be looking to either short Bitcoin or not buy Bitcoin?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to stay, and let me know if you can't see my screen. You guys should be able to. But first thing I always like to do is just ground ourselves in reality. Where is Bitcoin? And so far, Bitcoin's actually traded, I'm not going to say predictably, but it's been trading pretty textbook. We talked about this range high back test that we made in line with our 21-week simple moving average right here. It was our second touch of the 21-week simple moving average. Both times now that we've touched the 21-week SMA, we have rocketed off of it really, really hard. Now, we did dip a little bit below it, but once we recovered it, that was our bullish signal to get long, among other things. So far, we have quite a ways to go to the upside before Bitcoin actually gets overextended. You'll note that Bitcoin can stay overextended for a while, but historically around this red easy band region is where you want to be in a kind of a profit taking mindset, especially, when you're not straight up coming out after the halving cycle. So we're sitting here in a range in the red easy band area between 40, or for all practical purposes, because this is moving upwards, between $40,000 and $52,000. So to the upside, that is, that's our plausible targets to the upside here in the short term, before you'd expect to be, wanting to be in a profit-taking mindset, maybe trimming a little bit. And then on the downside, 13 to 17K is the absolute kind of worst case scenario that I look at. I don't think we're going to go see 10K or anything like that. And I'm quite honestly, I'm not fading this uptrend. This uptrend is very, very clear. We've now made a new high, barely. I'd like to see a larger high made around $34,000 to $37,000 to really continue this uptrend. But I am not fading Bitcoin here. I'm not fading this momentum. So that's the easy bands. I want to throw in the long margin pressure levels because they've been pretty darn accurate in terms of showing where the resistance is for Bitcoin. So initially 31K, and still 31K is the level that we're contending right now. What we want to see is a breach of 31K and a hold above it. And that's very bullish if that happens. It's bullish because we're taking out the previous local high, and it's bullish because we have a ton of resistance. And I do mean a ton of resistance at 31K. So if you were if you wanted to be contrarian here and you were bearish for whatever reason, I don't know what exactly that would be. Maybe the government comes out and you have some info on the government selling 42,000 Bitcoin, or the Mt. Gox distributions coming out, whatever that may be. Then 31K would actually be the level you'd want to be shorting. And it's a level we could pay attention to and still short if we start to see distribution up here, meaning if we start to see Bitcoin stall out and hang below 31K for a while, then we're probably going to start moving back down and looking, for a retest of 28.2 or 29, right, in the short term. And this could be a good level to short. I personally am not shorting it unless we get a very, very clear failure and then a retest failure as well. The way I'm personally playing this is looking for a break above it, which we have. We've taken out the prior high, and I'm looking for this to make support on the back end. And this could be happening already on a much shorter time frame. If I zoom into the hourly here and I make sure we get our correct wick here, it'll take just a second, so that we can kind of zoom in and see what's happening on the hourly to tell, hey, is this actually making support on top of it? Right. So if we zoom in, we're hanging out above now. We're hanging out above this 31K level. This is good news. And in the last 4 hours, we're spending time above it. If we see something like this, that's your short signal, right? I will say on the shorter term timeframes, we are seeing bearish divergence. So that is a distinct possibility. We're not seeing bearish divergence on the longer time timeframes, so not too concerned about it yet. But if this breaks back down below this 31K level and starts holding resistance, then we could see a correction, a retest of 28, 29K. Otherwise, this is holding right now. And this is actually quite bullish. As long as we hold here, this is bullish. This is a trigger to add to our long positions. So I'll be looking to add to my long positions if we just get a little bit cleaner of a support. I'm already long from around 25K personally. But yeah, this is bullish to be breaking through and hanging out above 31K. If I zoom out here, back to, we'll do the 4 hour, and we move up our margin pressure levels to our most recent swing low. You also see a lot of confluence around this 31K region. Let me get that just exactly correctly. I've got to zoom in because TradingView doesn't like to get the wick correct. But 31K even, that's our margin pressure level, our 5x long margin pressure level, meaning as soon as price goes above 31K, you can no longer go long on 5x leverage and maintain a liquidation point below this swing low of 24,800, which was our low. Right. So there's incentives to the incentives to go long on Bitcoin right now are actually diminishing. Doesn't mean Bitcoin isn't going to get a huge spot bid because of the Bitcoin, BlackRock ETF. It could certainly just zoom straight through these, but it's definitely at a place of resistance and definitely at risk of stalling out if we don't continue to see a bid upwards. Upside targets off of this swing low, as high as 49.6. Right. And I know that's our 2x long margin pressure level, and we're a ways off of that. We've also got some resistance at 33 coming in, and then 37.2. There's quite a bit of resistance levels along the way that we could map out. But 36 to 37, I think, is a pretty decent level to be targeting here for this next leg up for Bitcoin.
All right, so you got one or two there because our chat was kind of split down the middle. What do you think it has more likelihood? The 23K or the 40K? If you kind of had to
40.
You think 40 is more likely? Woo.
40, unless the only way I believe that we go down to 23 is if the US government comes out and they're like, start moving Bitcoin and they like sell this 42,000 Bitcoin, in which case I would just be looking to bid 23, 24, 25 again. Because once that's out of the way, all you really have is the Mt. Gox distributions, which I believe there's also 69 billion yen, which I believe is like 400 million in fiat that's also being distributed. So that could find its way into Bitcoin. You also, as far as bullish catalysts go, you've got Celsius, which is selling off a lot of altcoins. They're selling off a ton of Matic, some Chainlink, some Celsius tokens, but they're going to be buying Bitcoin and Ethereum with all of those altcoins that they're selling off. So that's actually bullish for Bitcoin and ETH and bullish for Bitcoin dominance. So unless we see the government just start ripping through their 42K Bitcoin here in the next next couple of days or weeks, then I think 40K is more likely in the short term than 23K.
You know what's also more likely is, why are we not getting any likes? Robin, you take out your belt and...
Yeah, so we're a little low on the likes today. I'm seeing that we are at, let's see, how many likes we got? 75.
Wow.
So less than 50% like ratio here. So do us a favor, hit the like button, especially if you like the content. And if you don't like the content, well, I'm sorry. But if you're not sorry, then hey, hit the like button. All right, and we also got some new people here. So if you're new here, say hello so we can drop an hola back at you. We have... Inspector Ape, Big Man CD, Cherry City Bullies, Randy M, Brooke, Jimmy Bitcorn, Richard Williams, Andre Brown, Nicole Minnis, and we also see French Toaster back in here. I haven't seen you in a little while, so welcome back to you. And also Wick, Flea, Itty Knee, Derelict V, and to all of you, hola! Welcome to Sin City Crypto.
DS Composer said, who is the guy analyzing the Bitcoin chart? I've never seen him before, but he's awesome. He is awesome. His name is Forrest. He has his own YouTube channel, does TA analysis, and is a research, does a great job. So go follow him. Sistine Research, subscribe. Also go follow him on Twitter. Now, as far as altcoins, okay, so here's what we're looking at for the crypto bubbles. The Bitcoin ecosystem is thriving. Bitcoin Cash up 34%. Bitcoin Satoshi Vision up 27.7%. Ethereum Classic up 11.5%. What's going on here with these second grade knockoffs of Bitcoin and Ethereum? All jokes aside as well, VeChain. I believe VeChain did just get a listing on Coinbase, so that is up 17.3%. Just the markets are green. Some of the biggest gainers over the last week. Pepe up 77%. Stacks up 40%. Forrest, any altcoins that you're looking at or anything that it's kind of caught your eye, whether it's a swing trade or whether it's like, hey, I've been looking to accumulate this token, this is a good area?
Yeah, so for me, I really want to stick to Bitcoin and ETH here. Yeah, your high beta right now is Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision and Bitcoin Cash, and those are pumping because I believe the EDX exchange that Charles Schwab is behind and Fidelity and Citadel are behind, they're going to be listing Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin. And Bitcoin Cash is like just a fork of Bitcoin, and Litecoin is essentially just like a copy of Bitcoin. The idea is that they are not securities. They're super safe. I don't think that we're going to see like huge levels of demand flow in the long term, flow into Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin. I think your safer bets are Bitcoin and Ethereum. Like I said, Bitcoin, the narrative right now is just Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. Now, a higher beta play on Bitcoin is Stacks, because Stacks is a layer 2 scalability solution for Bitcoin. So Stacks is performing really well. Yep. But I think ETH is fine. Like I think the ETH Bitcoin ratio is getting punished because you've got the Bitcoin ETF. Everything is just all eyes are on Bitcoin right now. Bitcoin has everything going for it. Do I think that eventually Ethereum and some altcoins will have a major catch-up trade? Yes, I do. But like right now, everything's all about Bitcoin. The one advantage that Ethereum has going for it, or the two, is like it doesn't have the proof of work overhead, but that kind of is a longer term thing. And then you don't have the U.S. government with billions of dollars worth of Ethereum to sell. That being said, when the government Bitcoin sales do go through and they dump 42,000 in Bitcoin, and Mt. Gox distributions happen, sending out a bunch of Bitcoin to a bunch of people, that's bearish for Bitcoin. What's bearish for Bitcoin is also bearish for Ethereum by extension. It's just not as structurally bearish directly. So you might see the ETH Bitcoin ratio bounce back a little bit when that happens, just depending on how the market digests that information. But right now, and this is, you guys know that I am like historically a critic of Bitcoin. The narrative right now is Bitcoin, BlackRock ETF. That is super, super, super bullish for Bitcoin in particular. As far as altcoins go, I'd be careful. I'm long term. I like Matic. I don't have an issue with Matic, but Celsius is about to sell off a large portion of Matic. It's just really, really unfortunate. You may have a really good buying opportunity coming up if it spills off 30 or 40%. I'm not trying to scare anybody, but Celsius, I believe by the end of the month is going to be selling a large amount of Matic. They're selling some Chainlink, I believe, and a couple of other altcoins. But quality altcoins in the long term probably do fine. But right now, the narrative is Bitcoin, and anything that is attached to Bitcoin like stacks, I'd expect to do well as well.
Yeah. For me, you mentioned Matic potentially getting a drop down 30-40%. To me, that, you said, I'm not trying to scare anyone. That, to me, that doesn't scare me, right? And I say this all the time. If something drops 20, 30, 40%, and you can identify why, and nothing has changed as far as why you invested in it in the first place, that's just another buying opportunity. Matic continues to make great partnerships. They continue to make great strides. And if they see a mass sell-off because Celsius has to dump, or I've seen that as far as Solana goes, when FTX, when they finally settle and have to liquidate, a lot of Solana is going to get liquidated. Those are buying opportunities if you still believe in the protocol. So that's kind of my take on that.
I'm really coming around to Solana again, and not that anything fundamental has changed with Solana, but with all of the FUD and the price action dumping, also with them getting caught in the crossfire with the FTX situation, I was under the assumption that, hey, maybe just kind of stay away. Something, they're under fire. Might be a good time just to be hands off. And you know what? They seem to have made it through that kind of situation. I think that the bottom is in for Bitcoin. So I think the worst is behind us. As long as Solana can keep uptime and doesn't have their outages that they've had in the past, I think that they might get back to the dominance that they once had before. We did cover on a separate video with Solana. They have EVM compatibility now in the works. And so if you have dApps if you have dApp developers on Ethereum network, they can utilize the Solana ecosystem to facilitate transactions. Basically, the one downfall with Ethereum is the throughput transaction fees, and that can be alleviated by using a EVM or Ethereum virtual machine, which is being in the beta process right now, and leverage Solana's layer 1 scaling for that. So
Rob did do a video yesterday talking about how they're looking to leverage EVM now, be EVM compatible. So guys, we're going to bring on our next guest. The next gentleman, first time on the show, his name is James Seyffart. He is a CFA. He is an ETF analyst at Bloomberg. We reached out to him. He's joining us. We're going to break down all the ETF news. Another one got approved today, BlackRock. So without further ado, let's go ahead and patch him in. Hey, James, how you doing?
How's it going, guys?
Hey,
good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I
you hear
can't
me?
imagine the demand that you're in right now with all this ETF news. So I wanted to thank you so much for taking time to visit us. I'm David. The other gentleman that's got the Sin City name behind him is Robin. And then we have our friend Forrest joining us as well. James, what was your, and I want to ask you really quick, because you've been at Bloomberg for a while. I believe it was 9 years. I looked on LinkedIn. I'm assuming you started in the TradFi and kind of made your way into the crypto world. What kind of got you there, and why crypto, and why did you continue to stay through all the FUD and everything that we've been hearing in the news?
So depends how long we want to go down this rabbit hole, but really it started when I was in college. My freshman year, which is spring of 2011. I said this on another podcast the other day, but I had a suite mate who was mining Bitcoin in the spring of 2011 and convinced me to download the Bitcoin mining software onto my laptop. I had no interest in it. I'm pretty sure he was using it for Silk Road type purposes. So he might have lost his Bitcoin when Silk Road got seized. I'm not really sure. But basically, he put the mining software on my computer and was like, I basically said he could keep it and just give me some of it, maybe if I ever had any interest. But my computer blew up. That hard drive blew up like a few weeks later.
Ugh.
So that was my first interest in it. But I actually got slightly orange pilled by Kathy Wood, who runs the ARK investment products. And they're actually one of the companies in partnership with another company in Europe, 21 Shares. So 21 Shares is based in Europe. They already have a whole bunch of crypto ETFs, ETPs trading in Europe, and they partner with ARK here to try to launch a spot Bitcoin ETF. So they're involved in this whole race. But back in the fall of 2016, I was at a TradFi, traditional finance conference with Morningstar, and she was up on stage sharing her white paper with Bitcoin. And I was like, oh, this is that same stuff from when I was in college. So basically, she's the one that orange pilled me. I went down that rabbit hole. I eventually moved over to Bloomberg Intelligence, where I write research, and I reported to Mike McGlone, who's our commodity strategist, and he writes a lot about crypto now. But in 2017, he didn't do any of it. And he asked me if I knew anything, and I was like, I actually do. Over the last year, I've gotten very into it, and so that's my rabbit hole experience of how I got into crypto. And now I'm a full-time ETF analyst, but that experience covering crypto from the commodities angle and macro angle in combination with my ETF experience is like putting this current situation about as right in the middle of that Venn diagram as you could possibly imagine.
And that's great because, you know, we're essentially bringing together the world of TradFi and the world of crypto when it's all going to be one, right? We're going to have companies running on blockchain. We're going to see more ETFs. Now, speaking of ETFs, what data have you on? So the SEC, they just approved another ETF. So I'm going to share a tweet from someone you do your show with, Eric Balkunas. Said the 2x Bitcoin ETF has become effective. Scheduled to launch Tuesday. It was doubtful it would happen, but it looks like it's official. Could this be early sign of SEC lightening up? After BITO launch, I believe they made earlier 2x filers withdraw. And then you tweeted this as well. Another potentially small crumb signifying the SEC is lightening up to their adversarial stance towards Bitcoin. Break down what you tweeted about this. Are you surprised that this was approved? And is this like a foregone conclusion now that the BlackRock spot ETF is going to get approved?
So first, not a foregone conclusion. Definitely not a foregone conclusion because they approved futures ETFs and they did nothing but deny spot Bitcoin ETF after spot Bitcoin ETF. So not a foregone conclusion, but I think it definitely makes the case a little bit stronger. You saw up there, I posted actually a piece of my note, which is technically supposed to be behind a Bloomberg firewall, but I wrote that the last week. So the day after we saw the iShares filing I wrote that, and I basically said, I have to believe if they're going to allow this 2x Bitcoin ETF to launch, they're like, if they don't, they're absolute hypocrisy in allowing a 2x leverage futures Bitcoin ETF to launch and then deny a spot Bitcoin ETF is just insane. So it definitely signifies a little bit more that maybe the SEC is loose lightening up here, as I and Eric both tweeted. But I wouldn't say it's like a smoking gun that the SEC is going to approve this, but it's definitely giving me a little more confidence in thinking that the approval might happen.
For me, I look at it as almost like a risk appetite. And so what they've always hung their hat on when it comes to the spot Bitcoin ETF is the fact that, hey, there's volatility, market manipulation, and we don't want to take that risk or put risk on investors, and so then they raise that investor protection flag. And here you have so some risk, at least more so than the futures by offering leverage trading on on the Bitcoin. So I don't know. I think it's a pretty good indicator of a changing of sentiment, at least from my perspective.
Now, James, we did start a little conversation on Twitter. That's kind of how you arrived here, and I want to share that. And I want to share a comment I made. So we talked about the Valkyrie when they filed for the spot ETF. And when you and Eric were on, I believe it was Anthony Pompliano's podcast, I believe one of you said, once BlackRock files, everyone else is going to file in and they're going to start filing. And that is literally what has happened. And so we tweeted, I said, do you think the NASDAQ partnership to target market manipulation in the BlackRock application is enough to get them the approval? To which you said it's too complicated to put in one tweet. Can you maybe expand on why that is enough, why that isn't enough? Can the SEC point at that and say that is the reason we're approving BlackRock?
So there's two ways here, right? Gary Gensler and the SEC can be as rigid as they want and argue that Coinbase does not make up a significant enough market share of the Bitcoin trading, right? If they really want to do that, they can do that. But if they're looking for a way to back down a bit, if they just don't want to keep fighting this anymore, they could theoretically argue that that Coinbase is a market of significant size, specifically U.S. dollar trading, U.S. dollar exchanges. There's many ways they can do this. And they've done this in the past when they approved the CME futures ETF. So one thing you said, the BitX was approved. There's two different ways to get ETFs approved, right? So the BitX, which is the 2x leverage ETF we were talking about, and the first Bitcoin futures ETFs are what's known as 1940 Act ETFs. And that process changed in like 2019. So essentially you file, and then after 75 days, you go effective, which is why Eric used that language, has gone effective, not approved. Because basically what happens, the SEC would have to come in and tell you to withdraw or tell you it's not allowed, which they did with Ethereum futures ETFs like earlier this month or late last month. So they didn't do that with BitX. So it's a de facto approval, but it's not the SEC is writing, we approve of this situation, right? They just haven't forced you to withdraw it. Now, 33 Act ETFs, which is what all spot Bitcoin ETFs are going to be, and what a few spot futures ETFs are, not spot futures, what a few futures ETFs are, they got approved in the spring of 2022. Those are the Teucrium Hashdex ETF. So Hashdex launched one. Teucrium filed it, and Hashdex is another issuer that partnered with them to take over that approval. And then Valkyrie actually got an approval for a 33 Act futures ETF as well. They just haven't launched it. But in that approval process, I talked about depends on how rigid the SEC wants to be. Basically, they had approved those 40 Act futures ETFs, and then in order to approve this, so those 33 Act ETFs, they go through this other process called the 19B4, and that is the process where the SEC either denies or approves and gives reasoning for all the denial or approval, right? So in the approval of those 33 Act futures ETFs, they said, we're approving this basically because the CME futures market is a market of significant size, and I quote, with respect to the CME futures market. So basically, it's a market of significant size when compared to itself, because that's the only market they were looking at. So there are ways, I understand somewhat the logic there, but it's not a market of significant size in Bitcoin trading globally. They're just saying it's a market of CME futures, which is also, we could talk about any other number of exchanges that have futures on them. They just didn't consider them for determining what market they want to compare it against. So if you want to use, we're assuming Coinbase is the spot exchange that they have the surveillance sharing agreement with, which SEC has denied so many ETFs, and every single one, they said they want a regulated market of significant size. So basically an exchange to come in and register, which isn't possible right now under the current framework. It's why Coinbase and Binance are getting facing a lawsuit right now. Or they want surveillance sharing agreements, which means you basically just share trade data with the exchange that the ETF would be listing on, which is what the BlackRock filing says it has.
Now, enter EDX. Can that? What are your thoughts on that? Is this coincidence? I turn into a tinfoil hat guy sometimes.
I think that the SEC is trying to favor legacy finance to be the de facto exchange, and it seems like they're pushing out all the traditional crypto exchanges, and now they're trying to corner that market through ETF or BlackRock, also Fidelity's with the EDX. I don't know. That's the vibe I'm getting. I guess it's somewhat conspiracy theory, but I don't know. That's what I'm reading. I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely the vibe that everyone should be getting right now. But also, I would argue that, look at what happened with FTX and Voyager and any countless number of other things. We can talk about the issues with the upstarts in the space. Basically, crypto as an ecosystem has punched itself in the face more times than anyone can count, and that's saying as somebody who's a Bitcoiner and crypto believer. So as far as the SEC is concerned, they already know and trust these financial institutions, so it makes sense that they would prefer them. Fidelity, obviously EDX is big, but I don't think that, the argument would be that maybe these things are getting approved and they're happening, and these TradFi companies, Fidelity, BlackRock, they have I don't want to say a revolving door, but it's basically a revolving door between the SEC and other parts of the government. These people tend to go back and forth between these large firms. So they have their ear to the ground. They know what the pulse of where things are going. So then again, Fidelity has never stopped building, even during everything that has blown up. Fidelity continued to hire people, continued to expand. We've seen left and right people like they have always had interest. Franklin Templeton's another TradFi company that has shown a lot of interest in the space. So yeah, it's partially the tinfoil hat stuff kind of makes sense, but also at the same time, it also makes sense why a regulator would prefer these legacy institutions to be doing this. So I just think it might signal a little bit more of like an opening or a leniency from the SEC, specifically with Bitcoin type stuff. Yeah. If this was an Ethereum spot ETF proposal or ADA or anything you can name, or any of the ones that are named in the Binance and Coinbase lawsuits, like we wouldn't be having this conversation. Right. Bitcoin is a unique situation on its own because it's the one thing that Gary Gensler will admit is not a security. Even if he's admitted Ethereum wasn't a security in the past, he won't admit it now. But Bitcoin is one that they're not fighting on. So I think maybe there's just a little bit of leniency coming in here because they're like, why are we fighting the Bitcoin aspect of this? We should just be fighting all the other things that honestly do make a little more sense. I disagree with a lot of the SEC stance on some of these things, but at least the argument is there and the argument makes sense that they're trying to make.
So you don't think they're going to try to rewind the Bitcoin narrative in the same way that they rewound the Ethereum one? And the reason I even mentioned that is that even though Bitcoin hasn't been in the crosshairs, Gary Gensler is still reluctant to say the words Bitcoin is a commodity. He just kind of shrugs it off like, yeah, okay, Bitcoin, but that's not what we're talking about here. And it always kind of leaves this lingering doubt, like, is this real? Like, I don't know. I mean, is there any chance that they try to go after Bitcoin? I think that maybe because there's proposal changes that could come down the pipeline, maybe they're being hesitant on just outright naming it a commodity and it's green light. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, let's be clear. The left wing of the Democratic Party does not like Bitcoin. So assuming they win again and get more power some way, theoretically, they can really push some of this. But I really don't think so. I mean, there's enough that's been stated from all types of regulatory institutions and big players that they don't consider Bitcoin to be a security. So I don't know what would change. It sounds like Gensler might be arguing that Ethereum going to a proof of stake could be a form of a security move. Like that might be, he might argue that's why he changed his stance. So I don't see Bitcoin doing that. So I wouldn't put anything past the government. If they really want to fight crypto, they can. If they want to really fight, they are actually. If they really want to fight Bitcoin, I wouldn't say the odds are like 0%, but I would say it's pretty unlikely that I would see them changing that type of thing, saying that Bitcoin is a security now.
You know, Bitcoin has proven to be more bipartisan than a lot of things. And even though there are more, people on the left, the Democrats that are more outspoken against crypto and Bitcoin, you do have some as well who are supporters. James, I want to bring up, you were on a podcast, I forget which one it was, and you brought up the first futures ETF that was approved. I forget which one it was. It was either Valkyrie, but it did $1 billion in what, a day? You said a day or a couple of days?
Billion and a half in 2 days. It was the ProShares ETF.
And a half in 2 days. What do you think if and I know there's one spot application in front of BlackRock, correct? It's Cathie Wood's ARK?
Yes, it is. The same woman that orange pilled me, you could argue. Yeah.
Things come full circle, right? What would you expect the volume? I mean, would you expect it to be similar, less? And what kind of impact would that have on market sentiment and maybe the price of Bitcoin, if you feel comfortable speculating on that?
I cannot speculate on the price of Bitcoin, unfortunately. Literally not allowed to in my role.
Are you registered with FINRA?
It would definitely. Yeah, no, I'm not. But yeah. So okay. I'm just my role at Bloomberg. They don't let me talk about price or anything like that. Fair but enough. It would undoubtedly be money pouring in. I mean, even if you take anything out of flows, right? The SEC approving this and being accepting to allow a Bitcoin ETF to launch is undoubtedly a bullish indicator for how they are going to be going forward towards Bitcoin. Like it's a de facto acceptance. Now, will it be $1.5 billion in 2 days? I think that's possible. I wouldn't count against that, and that would be spot Bitcoin buying. But also, you got to remember when that thing launched, October of 2021. You guys can tell me, you remember what was going on with the market at that point in the late fall of 2021.
All-time highs.
Yeah, I mean, we were rocking and rolling. It was a bull market of all bull markets, right? We were up above 60 in Bitcoin. Everything was at all-time highs. So to then getting an ETF launched at that point, is like that basically marked the top, right? So right now we're not in the same sort of market cycle. We're not at all-time highs. We're not anywhere near all-time highs right now. We're not, the halvening isn't really, we're just at a different cycle period from Bitcoin. So that might hinder things. But the other side of this is there's a lot of money in Bitcoin ETFs in Canada that left probably from GBTC when the Bitcoin ETFs in Canada launched. So they had spot Bitcoin ETFs before we even had futures ETFs. So like money probably went there from GBTC. So it's possible that if we get a spot Bitcoin ETF here, money could come back. Same thing, money could leave BITO because a spot Bitcoin ETF would be a more efficient market exposure than the futures ETF, in my opinion. So there might be some money in BITO that would come over to this new spot Bitcoin ETF launch if it does happen, which again is not guaranteed under any circumstance. But so new money coming in, but also there's likely to be money moving around from elsewhere that people just want to prefer a US based Bitcoin ETF just because it's likely to be the most efficient, liquid, tight trading, you name it, and secure place to buy Bitcoin if you're going to do it on the traditional financial rails. So there will be demand. How much of it will be completely new demand for buying Bitcoin itself? I don't really know, but there will be some of that, I'm sure.
And then I'm curious, do you anticipate that there will be some arbitrage opportunities where the price of the ETF and the underlying asset price of Bitcoin deviates? Because from my understanding, and I'm no expert in it, but I think that they are not bought and sold, the underlying asset, in real time, and that they have to kind of settle up at the end of the month. Is that correct? Is there going to be an opportunity for where the price is higher here versus the crypto exchanges? What does that look like if there's any arbitrage opportunities?
So for the average person, there will not be any arbitrage opportunity. So the US financial markets, the trading markets, we're talking about Virtu, Citadel, the largest trading firms in the world will be trading this thing. So if there's any arbitrage opportunity, it's going to be taken in measured in nanoseconds, right? We're not, it's not going to be like when Japan was trading at a much higher multiple or South Korea was trading way higher than the US markets, right? A Bitcoin ETF and the ETF wrapper itself is like a very advanced technology. So the way it works is if at any point, there's always continuous creation redemption. So I mentioned Grayscale once or twice, but like the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust is trading a massive discount because there's no way to get access to the underlying value of that Bitcoin, right? So the way an ETF works is you can always change the number of shares that are outstanding by hand delivering the underlying assets. So for a typical ETF, it's a basket of equities, right? Or it could be a basket of bonds. In this case, it will be literally Bitcoin. When you think about it, like what drives the price of a stock? It's the demand for its shares, right? The supply stays roughly the same, roughly. I know there's a lot of other things that happen, but with an ETF, that can change intraday and all day long. So they'll just change the number of shares to meet the demand, and that means that price and NAV stays the same. So unfortunately, if somebody out there is thinking it's going to be an arbitrage opportunity, it's going to be a very hard nut to crack. Usually, we call it the arbitrage band. So usually the price stays in line within a certain band, plus or minus like a couple bips or something like that, depending on how much it costs to trade and create the shares. So there's friction, obviously. You would have to send Bitcoin over the Bitcoin rails. So there would be some time, but like every ETF has its own thing depending on what it costs to trade. So like trading in emerging markets equity might cost that band may be a little wider than something like large cap US stocks. So we don't know what the Bitcoin would be, but for the most part, we can look at spot Bitcoin ETFs in Canada and elsewhere in Europe, and those things trade absurdly tight. They are very efficient.
You know, James, just a simple fact. You said nanoseconds. You know, I used to trade stock options, and my cousin was a day trader, and he would talk about, you know, high frequency trading and how literally these bots or these systems would come in. You would put in, let's say the stock was a penny, or let's say the stock was $100 and 1 penny. By the time you go and execute your trade, you're buying it at $100 and 3 pennies, and someone just made 2 pennies. multiply that by millions. I can only imagine, extrapolating that out to the spot ETF and just Bitcoin in general, what that's going to look like. Any of you gentlemen, Forrest or Robin, anyone have anything else for James before we let him go?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. I know it's probably quite difficult, but if you had to quantify it in terms of your confidence of an approval, what percentage chance do you think we're going to get an approval? Like if you just had to throw a number out there, like just gut instinct.
So me and my boss, Eric Balchunas, have publicly stated that we're probably around 50-50. I'm writing
Okay.
a note right now and I'm going to be putting research and I'll put it out probably next week what our actual numbers are. Like, I feel like 50-50 is a bit of a cop out, but really it is because we've talked about all the reasons why the SEC could approve. But also you got to remember, like there's been 33 applications for spot crypto ETFs in the US. They've all been denied. Every single one of them has been denied or not allowed to launch. Same thing with, and then you add in like a 30 or 40 other futures ETFs before we actually got the futures ETF, and now we're getting a leverage one. So a lot of leverage ones were denied. So like the SEC denying these things has to be taken into consideration, but I'm around 50-50. And to be clear, that number, on me saying 50-50, I've talked to other ETF analysts and other people who cover the more TradFi side of this stuff. They think me and Eric are pretty high on that, but we were
Really?
also very high on the Bitcoin futures ETFs. We were the ones that were saying they were going to launch. And I can't tell you how many people were arguing with me that we were wrong, and we ended up being right. So I'm seeing a little bit of deja vu there, but we're not quite as confident as right now as we were with those futures ETFs that launched in the fall of 2021. We came out aggressive in September saying they were going to get launched. And that's literally when I got like a huge chunk of my following on Twitter, which is where you guys saw me. But I think it's probably 50-50, maybe slightly over 50-50, I would say. But I'm also trying to make sure I'm not just getting too hyped up. There's a lot of hype going on right now from all these different things. But this, the BitX, which is the 2x leverage ETF, also going effective today, which I wrote about over a week ago, was basically saying the SEC can't approve this and then deny spot. Also gives me a little more confidence. So every day I keep getting a little bit more. But again, at the end of the day, the SEC is suing Coinbase. They will be the custodian of Bitcoin. And they're the spot exchange that they're doing likely the surveillance sharing agreement with that would satisfy the SEC concerns. So the SEC could be like, no, we're suing them. We don't trust them at any point, right? So there's any reasons. It all comes down to Gary and the SEC and how flexible or rigid they want to be, which is what happens. We got the futures ETF correct, the call correct, because we listened to what Gary was saying. Gary basically said he looks forward to CME futures Bitcoin ETFs applied under the 40 Act. And basically everything else before that signified they are never launching Bitcoin futures ETFs. But he had said a few things in a few speeches that gave us some hope. There's a lot of little breadcrumbs we're seeing right now that are giving us hope, but we haven't seen anything like Gary Gensler giving a speech saying we're going to loosen up our criticism of the Bitcoin market. But so, yeah, to answer your question succinctly, 50-50, but I'm trying to explain why that's not really a cop out right here, because I hate doing that. But
And then last question that I've got is, do you think that BlackRock is seeing a little bit of demand in the market, or seeing the demand that there is for Bitcoin, and just putting out an ETF as a way to satisfy that demand? Or do you think that they see Bitcoin as a major opportunity that they can go out and really, really push into their client base as a way to diversify and round out your portfolio into Bitcoin as a digital gold thing? Do they view it as something that they can just really, really start pushing? Or do you think it's just, hey, this Bitcoin thing is getting a lot of demand, the halving's coming up, why don't we just throw an ETF out there just so we're making money off of it?
I think it's probably a little bit of all of those things, right? Like, I have people in my company who do not believe at all in Bitcoin and still cover the space a little bit. So I'm sure BlackRock has the same thing, and they're just like, I don't care about this, but obviously we have clients who have demand. They've already had a partnership with Coinbase, so I'm sure they're seeing some clients show demand for this. Whether or not they fully believe in it, I feel like doesn't really matter. We talked a little bit about BitO and being how much money it took in just 2 days. That's because it was the first mover advantage, right? It launched just a couple days before Valkyrie got their ETF out, and they are the ones that took all of the money. They'd have vast, I think it's 93% of the assets and make up 98% of the trading volume for Bitcoin futures ETFs in the US. So that first mover advantage is massive. So if BlackRock thinks they can get the first mover advantage here, even if they aren't certain that they're going to get approved, like, the benefit of being first to market is tremendous, as evidenced by Bitcoin futures ETFs in the US. And if you look at spot Bitcoin ETFs in Canada, the same thing happened. Purpose launched BTCC first, and they took over a huge chunk of the market share in the space virtually immediately. So the benefit of just launching these things, even if you don't believe in Bitcoin, is there. And then, yeah, I'm sure there's some people that believe all the stuff that show the diversification and benefits to Sharpe ratio of adding a 3 to 5% allocation to Bitcoin at the very low end. The benefits that it has to your portfolio returns is probably something they might have looked at. But at the end of the day, it's just that there's demand here. They see the demand. And honestly, if you had asked me months ago if BlackRock was going to file for spot Bitcoin ETFs, we've had this conversation. Me and Eric both agreed that they would eventually. They have a gold ETF. They don't shy away from this type of stuff. A company like Vanguard would never launch something like this, but we always thought BlackRock would ultimately do it. I just didn't think they would try to be the first to market. Typically, what they'll do is they'll let somebody else do it, and then they just come in with their name, their prowess, and their distribution and compete with anyone, even if they're not first. So if you have the BlackRock name and you're first, that's a big thing for them.
Interesting.
I wanted to ask one last question. So we've had this ongoing narrative with the ETF that publicly traded companies or large institutions that were kind of fearful of SEC going after companies for being in crypto. Is this like a foolproof kind of path for a company to get exposure to Bitcoin and crypto without the fear of getting sued by the SEC? And obviously it's a little easier to, you don't have to do the whole seed phrase and custody thing. Is it pretty much foolproof now? If the ETF passes for a company to say, hey, we want to put some of our treasury assets in Bitcoin, do you see any potential downside?
So treasury assets, I don't know if you can buy a fund with treasury assets, but obviously MicroStrategy has bought Bitcoin itself. So I'm assuming you could probably figure out a way to do it. But I think the bigger thing here is advisors, not necessarily companies. So advisors make up, call it $30 trillion in the US, right? So you have $30 trillion in AUM. So if an ETF is approved, that puts Bitcoin on the traditional financial rails in the same way that Grayscale's Bitcoin Trust did back in 2015, 2016 time range. And we saw how much money poured into that. That thing at its peak had $40 billion in it, right? And that was mostly people looking for access to Bitcoin on the traditional financial rails. And a lot of it, I have to admit, was people trying to take advantage of those premiums and discounts. So they didn't actually care about Bitcoin. They just wanted to play the premium and discount. That said, going back to the advisors, if they have $30 trillion in assets, right? If just 1% of advisors decide to put 1% of their client assets into Bitcoin, that's an awful lot of buying. And there's a lot of systems out there that have been created in companies to try and make it easier for advisors to put their client assets directly into Bitcoin. But for the most part, based on surveys, a lot of people were just buying Bitcoin themselves. Advisors would much prefer that to be in their wheelhouse, right? So the way advisors mostly make money, it's AUM based. So they'll charge 1% fee on the total AUM or like whatever they're managing for somebody. So if somebody has $2 million, they're going to charge them 1% a year. So that's however much money. And if they have a bunch of Bitcoin and crypto in their ecosystem, but for this one, we're just talking about Bitcoin. If they have $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or $100,000 worth of Bitcoin, or they want exposure to Bitcoin, an advisor would much rather just be able to point and click in their traditional systems they already have than sign up for this whole new system. Some other company is promising to do X, Y, or Z. It's much easier for them just to be at Schwab or TD Ameritrade or Fidelity, when we talk about EDX a little bit, and just like add it to their systems that way. And then anyone not at those places, an ETF is still easy because you can buy any ETF with a brokerage account. So for all those reasons, I agree with everything you're saying. The other side of it is other funds have no way to really buy Bitcoin. The way they've been doing it right now is by buying BITO. There was Kathy Wood is known for buying GPTC. There's plenty of other mutual funds that have done this in the past because technically they're not allowed to buy Bitcoin directly. So if this ETF launches, all of a sudden other funds can use this ETF to get access to Bitcoin directly.
I think you hit the nail right on the head, James. Ease of use, right? Practicality. Instead of having to go open up an account or custody amount, it's like, okay, I got a Schwab account, I got a TD Ameritrade account. I already know who BlackRock is. I feel comfortable with them. Bam, click, buy Bitcoin. Now, I want to squeeze one more. I know you got to go. I just really quick.
It's okay.
Timeline.
Yeah, go ahead.
Timeline. So I know the SEC is the number 240 days or 270 on the max side to approve or deny.
Okay. So I have time. I can talk for a little bit more.
Okay,
mine's an internal meeting that I have to go to, so they can wait a few minutes because this is going to take time, and I don't want to like shortchange you on the answer.
It's good content, man. So we appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the BitX, the 2X one is filed under that 1940 Act product, right? And the way that one works is it's just a 75 day from the day that it's filed. 75 days after that, it goes effective, and then you can launch. BitX is going effective on June 26th. And they have enforced the withdrawal. It'd be extremely rare for the SEC to come in and withdraw it now. And it looks like what you saw Eric post was that it fully went effective as far as the SEC is concerned. Mm-hmm. Now, the other thing is these 1933 Act ETFs, which I talked about the 19B4 process. That's basically just filing for a rule change. So it's an issuer partners with an exchange, in this case, NASDAQ or for BlackRock, or CBOE or New York Stock Exchange. They partner together to file to the SEC to propose a rule change. In this case, the fundamental thing here, they're trying to allow spot Bitcoin ETFs. There's underlying things, but the real thing here is they're applying for a rule change to be allowed to launch a Bitcoin ETF. Now I have that out of the way. The way it usually works is so you file and you go on to, we can see it on those exchanges' websites. So we saw it on NASDAQ, we saw the filing on NYSE and CBOE. NASDAQ and BlackRock were first. They're the only one with the stated market surveillance agreements or surveillance sharing agreement in their 19B4 process. So that's the one thing that separates BlackRock from the others. That said, once it posts on the website, we don't know, there's a time period that goes on between where the SEC has to acknowledge it. So the SEC basically has to say, like, we've acknowledged this and we post it on our website. And then after some period of time after it's on the website, it goes to what's referred to as the Federal Register. So once that gets posted on the SEC website and they acknowledge the application, then we have a concrete time frame. So when we have that concrete time frame, it goes from when it's posted, there's a 45-day time period before the SEC has to issue a decision. And they can delay, deny, or approve. And then again, another 45-day period if they delay. Same thing, delay, deny, approve. Then a 90-day time period, delay, deny, approve. And then a 60-day time period, delay, and they can only deny or approve. That's why we've seen, if you've been watching on Twitter, why we see all these things where every time it was like, oh, it was delayed, it wasn't denied. But anytime something was denied, it always went to the 240 days you mentioned and then got denied. So if this thing gets delayed right off the bat, which would happen based on our estimates, somewhere around August 19th, August 15th, maybe, depending on when it hits that SEC website, maybe a little later, that's when the first decision deadline is going to come up. So if it gets delayed there, that's probably a bad sign that it's going to be denied. Not guaranteed, but it's that severely decreases those odds that I said at 50%. They would go way down after that point. That said, ARK and 21 shares, after they filed in May. Their 45-day deadline was June 29th. The SEC came out and delayed it 14 days early. So it's a deadline for a decision. It's not they have to wait until this day to file it. It's just a deadline that the SEC has to respond by that day. So the next date for that is August 13th. So essentially, the BlackRock decision is, unless we see it posted to the SEC website tonight, it's going to be after August 13th. Right. But again, ARK and 21 shares filed with, I think it's CBOE, and they don't have the same surveillance sharing agreement that's stated in the 19B4. I'm assuming they're probably scrambling to get one right now. Right. So we'll be watching that very closely. But essentially, look for some type of update in August at the latest. And like I said, the SEC went 14 days early on June 15th, which is ironically the same day that BlackRock filed, and delayed ARK and 21 shares. So yeah, those are the timelines. If they go delay, and then deny, we're looking at like February.
Okay. Man, James, what's some good insider knowledge? We really appreciate you taking the time and joining us. Guys, if you want more of James, go follow him on Twitter at JSEYFF. We did put the link in the chat, and we pinned it to the top as well. He does tweet updates, and so we know the world of ETF and TradFi can be confusing. James does a great job of breaking everything down, as you saw here today. And so, James, on behalf of our community and all of us here, we appreciate you, my friend. And we definitely look forward to bringing you on again. And enjoy the rest of your weekend, man. Take care.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. Happy Friday. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, James. You too.
Thank you.
Take care. So, August.
What a lot of... I'm going to have to watch this whole episode back.
Same. Amen.
Yeah,
that was good stuff. I had a couple more questions, but I'm like, I know he's got to go. So, all right, guys, if you like guests like that, if you like that kind of content, hit the like button, put a one in the chat. Let us know how you feel. Also, we have
got a lot of
go ahead, Robin.
a lot going on here in the chat. So for those of you that are new, say hello so we can drop an hola back at you. We have, first of all, one gifted membership from Remington Peralt. Also, Big Man CD joined as the center. And then lastly, Jimmy gifted 20 memberships. So Jimmy out here making it right. And then Some of the new people we spotted out here in the chat. We got Alexander, Barry, Chad Stanford, Sist Montezinos, CS Composer, Blockchain Chick, Pump FV702, Old Stool, James A, Degen Tolman, We Are As, Vitality, BMX, Joanna Benali, and Brandon James. To all of you, hola! Welcome to Sin City Crypto.
Now, just real quick. So this was tweeted out earlier today at 1 p.m. Eastern. Belgium orders Binance to cease crypto services in the country. So now it's no longer just in the U.S. It's global.
That's it. I'm protesting. No more Belgian waffles for me. No more Blue Moon. No more wheat beer. Giving it up.
Wow. Guys, is Binance in trouble here?
I would say yes, I think what's happening is that the U.S. has a lot of influence, and a lot of people just blindly copy without really doing. They just say, "Hey, the U.S. did this. The U.S. is against Binance. They're pulling out. We share a lot of financial institutions and a lot of influence back and forth." So I think you're going to see more of this. I think there's going to be countries that simply don't participate or interact with companies that the U.S. is against, just simply because they do whatever the U.S. does. I mean, what do you think?
I think I agree. I also think, it's funny that when people have an interesting, in-depth view of something. Now, I know there's some conspiracy theories that are kind of out there, like the aliens are the ones that got the submarine. No, it's a little out there. But as far as the people that were saying months ago that governments are looking to take crypto out of the hands of the early adopters, like the Coinbase, the Binance, the KuCoins, rip it away from them and give it to their friends, TradFi. And people said, "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist," but that is, I think, literally what's happening. That is what I think is happening. Forrest, what's your take on Binance Belgium? You think we're going to see more of this? And does this give you cause for concern for Binance, which is the largest exchange in the cryptocurrency space, I might add?
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising coming from the Belgian government, I don't think, and I'm not a Belgian government expert, but the one piece of news that sticks out to me with Belgium is the farmers' protests. Apparently, the Belgian government had some sort of nitrogen woke green policy that banned farmers from farming livestock, and there was a big protest. So I think this is like one of the most green woke countries out there. So it wouldn't surprise me if they're trying to ban crypto. I mean,
But why go after Binance?
Our friend, what's up?
But why go after Binance? It's just
they're number one crypto exchange. Yeah, but I agree with you. I mean, I'm happy to put on the tinfoil hat. No shame there, at least to some degree, right? I do believe that people are trying to take the powers that be are trying to take freedom out of the hands of people that own crypto, and ultimately it's all about control. You control the narrative, control the money, and control the people.
Awesome, guys. We are finito here. If you enjoy the content, if you make sure to like the video, also go subscribe to Sistine Research on Twitter, or not on Twitter, on YouTube at Sistine Research. Also, go follow Forrest on Twitter at 00Forrest with 2 R's. Someone asked about the indicators. There is an affiliate link in the description of this video. It's a paid indicator. It swaps right over to TradingView. So if you want to do that, go there. Also, go follow us on all of our social media. Support the channel if you want to. Speaking of supporting the channel, big shout out to our channel sponsor, CAMS, Blue Wire Technology. If you want more information on how they can help your business, IT, and networking issues, visit bluewiretech.com. And with that being said,
and also one last shout out, we had one gifted membership from B-Team Crypto. There it is.
B-Team, not Miss Teen, B-Team.
B-Team.
B-Team. Oh, sorry, B-Team, my bad. With that being said, Rocco. Stop it. This tornado's out here, man.
What are you doing with your finger, man?
I'm trying to cue his tornado. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We had an amazing week. We hope you did too. Big shout out to our special guest. Big shout out to Forrest. On behalf of us all here at Sin City Crypto, have a great weekend. We love you all. See you Monday. Peace.
Sin City,
You guys.
Crypto. Everybody know we here for entertainment and info. Gonna show you how to get that big dough. So every day stay tapped in for big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David. I split the game, but they gave it. Name the coin that's your favorite. I got dry powder, why save it? To the OGs, new beginners. Special shout out to the well members. Buy the dip, sell winners. Ain't really nothing you can tell sinners. Tune in for the latest new flavors. They gonna teach us mean coins. They polarizing like barbecue chicken pizzas. I laugh with a major grin. Laggers, we trade them in. Baddies, they came to sin. And sinners gon' play to win. Screaming hola till my bags are flowing over. Hold ya to the moon, then to the solar. Won't I? Don't be letting FOMO control ya. It's over when the finger tornado close ya.